Welcome to Awake to Oneness Radio. I am Caroline Chang, your host. The mission of Awake to Oneness Radio is to inspire the world to awaken to the universal truth of oneness. Science is now teaching us that all life is interconnected and interdependent, that there's really just one. And ancient wisdom and spirituality has been teaching the truth of oneness for eons. So science is just now catching up. So basically, what you do to another person, you're literally doing to another aspect of yourself. And when mankind awakens to the universal truth of oneness, there will be peace on earth. Today's show topic is raising the planet's frequency with Landria Onkka. And I hope I pronounced it correctly.
You did a great job, Caroline.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Landria. And I was about to say Andrea.
Well, that's okay. That's okay.
Welcome to Awake to Oneness Radio. I'm so happy to have you with us today. And please share with our listeners your journey and the work that you're doing. But before we even get into the work that you're doing now, you're doing some amazing work. Before we get into that, I want you to kind of give the listeners, share your journey with our listeners.
So thank you so much for having me, because I do get asked frequently to be on talk shows, and I'm very careful about, sharing my message with, let's say, the right frequency. And what you just said is totally in alignment with what my quest is. We all have our own journeys, but I want to make sure that when I'm on a talk show, that I understand that your listeners and followers really understand what you just said, and that we are just one. And so, yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that. So I will share my journey. It is definitely a little bit unique. I grew up in the Midwest to very lovely parents. I don't have any traumatic stories to tell, fortunately. I was always a great student and a little bit different. My mom used to make jokes that, she didn't know who I was, and that somebody must have dropped me off on the porch and left me.
Well, I want to share with you. I have to interject right there, because I felt the same way growing up.
Yep.
I mean, I felt like I went to Catholic school, and they say God doesn't make any mistakes. But I like when I was growing up as a very young child, I didn't fit in. Yeah, so I understand exactly what you're saying.
So, Caroline, I think you already know this, because if you follow people like Dolores Cannon and so many, she's one of my favorites. I'm actually a quantum healing hypnosis technique hypnotist. I got registered and certified by her, because I followed her, and she goes way out there, but she talks about the different waves of people. And anybody who's not familiar with Dolores, I highly suggest you look her up. Unfortunately, we lost her a few years ago,
yes.
But she did like 45 years of amazing stuff that just the last few years has been acceptable. Let's put it that way. And just as you were saying, Caroline, the science is now catching up with what we've always known for eons.
Exactly.
The masters, the wise ones, but something happened along the way. And so I want to talk about that, because there are so many of us who do feel like we don't belong here, and we're noticeably different than other people. And I don't think that, obviously, there's coincidence. There's no chaos in the universe.
Exactly.
So when I was brought up, yes, I was very different. I was just, let's just say, I saw the world differently. And I was always a go-getter. I always went after my dreams, but I was actually, believe it or not, quite shy. And but it never stopped me. So you can say, well, that was a part of my innate personality, which would be true. But there's also a part of me that I think was part of my mission, and that is to really break past all the fears that we are born with, that we're told that is different than what you just shared, and that is that we are one being expressing itself as individuals, but we've somehow along the way thought of ourselves as separate. Well, I went after so many different goals in my life, from cheerleading to I was a professional NBA cheerleader.
Oh.
Yeah, I went after that. I went into a stadium of about a couple thousand girls. I was a cheerleader in high school, but certainly wasn't the best one.
Right.
And I couldn't do a backflip off of somebody's shoulders or anything like that. And so they only needed 2 girls. But you know what? I don't look at life that way. I don't think of the negative odds. I think about the opportunities. And when you go into life with that attitude, it's amazing how the universe, as
Right.
quantum physics now shows us, happens because you're doing it.
Yes.
And we somehow think it's random. So I never really felt like anything was random. And I always felt like I had to always go after my dreams, because the alternative for me wasn't even a consideration.
Okay.
So I went after it. And of course, you know the story. I was one of the 2 selected, because it wasn't about doing a backflip. It was about so many other factors. I got a scholarship as a writer on Capitol Hill. And the actual position was closed. When I applied, I found out about the program. I went to University of Michigan, and I found out that this opening was, there, but by the time I got to it, was closed because I found out too late about the program. But you know what? I applied anyways. 1 week before the internship started, I got a call from Washington, and the secretary said, "Are you still interested in that position?" I said, "Yeah, why?" And she said, "The intern that we hired got a position in a law firm that he wanted, and it's open now. And so if you could be here in a week." And boy, I packed up my car and drove down to DC. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
I went after another scholarship overseas. I went to Georgetown University for a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I applied for a scholarship overseas at University of Cologne, through the German government, University of Michigan, and another organization, Bayer Corporation, they were recruiting students to study and work for Bayer Corporation. That would be Bayer aspirin. That's
Okay.
a chemicals company over there.
Okay.
And pronounced Bayer.
Oh.
And it's German, so I'm going to pronounce the way they do.
Oh, right. You're right.
I didn't speak German, but I had taught myself. I never took 1 class of German.
Wow.
And I passed. Not only did I pass the examination, there was a panel of 8 people. I had to go in and actually conduct the interview in German.
Yes.
I got chosen, and I got the scholarship. And I lived over in Europe for several years, studied overseas, went to University of Cologne, worked for Bayer Corporation. So I've had a very interesting life. I started my own company at age 19. And I worked just in various positions, and was made a partner in a recruiting firm when I was in my early 20s. And eventually, somehow got thrown into the world of finance because I was recruiting stockbrokers.
Okay.
And so one of the brokers said, and I was very successful at it. One of the brokers said to me, "You'd be a really good wholesaler." I said, "I didn't even know what one was." And he says, "Those are the guys that sell the financial products to the stockbrokers, and they make a lot of money, and they get to travel." And he says, "They're really salespeople."
Right.
Well, there was a position open once again,
right.
that required somebody to be, usually it was a stockbroker who had held these positions.
Right.
I did not have a Series 7. That's the stockbroker license. I was the only one who didn't. I applied for it, and once again, I got the position. And the guy who hired me said, "I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm going to hire you because I believe in you." And I ended up being their top producer out of 50 managers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, it's all about believing in yourself, not looking at the odds, and understanding that we all have fear.
Yes.
We all have it.
Yes.
But I have the, ability to break through it.
Mm-hmm.
It's always there. I don't allow it to stop me because I don't want to live my life like that. I never want to have regrets.
Right.
Well, I went into investment banking. Investment bankers, for anybody who's not sure what that is, we don't work in banks. We are actually the people on Wall Street who raise capital for companies.
Okay.
So when these businesses need millions of dollars, investment bankers are the ones that find the investors, put the deals together, and fund them. And I did that for almost 25 years. I worked with very wealthy people, multi-million and billionaires. I worked with celebrities, professional athletes. I was on private jets. I briefly was a senior vice president for wealth management for Neuberger Berman, which was Lehman Brothers. I did that for a couple of years, and then went back to my own business because I didn't really fit in with somebody telling me what to do that I didn't feel was good for other people.
Okay.
Well, what happened is that this was just a few years ago. My mother died. Well, I got a divorce. Again, no traumatic story there, just a mutual goodbye. Just not a good fit, didn't resonate. And
you grew apart.
We grew apart. We went our different ways. It's all good. My mother died right after that. Then a few months later, my dog died. My baby of 16 years.
Oh.
A few months later, my dad died. A few months later, my cousin died. A few months later, my brother died. This is all recent. I just kept getting, my entire family's gone. I mean, my immediate family.
Yes.
So I got hit with a lot of big changes, big events, and I decided I no longer resonated with the world of finance. It was getting to the point where it's such a disconnect, and I think most people feel this way about their careers. You go into something, and the longer you're there, the tougher it is to get out of it. And especially if you're good at what you do, it's really, and you're successful.
Yes.
I always tell people, I don't have a sad story for you. I was on private jets. I had an awesome life. But none of that counts if you're really not loving
what you're doing.
Yes. Yeah, you're, and you feel like something's missing, and I think the whole species walks around like that. So I had been a writer. I was a writer on Capitol Hill, as you know. I got scholarships and was very successful at that, but I never really pursued it as a career. Nobody really encouraged me to do that.
Okay.
And I decided I was going to write a book. So I wrote a book called The Rooftop Christmas Tree. It's based on a true story. A friend shared a story with me, and I wrote this book and turned it into fiction because I added a romance in it.
Okay.
And that's actually not true. And created this story based on a amazing true story that's like a miracle. And it's a holiday story. And I published it. I then went and got an agent who within a few months called me and said, sit down, because we have not only a production team that's going to buy it, they're going to greenlight immediately. Greenlight means they're going into production. Most of the time, if you even sell your movie, it's an option and they sit on it for a few years. They tie it up and they never go to production. So she was surprised, but I was not. I just knew. I always knew it was going to happen. So no matter what happened along the way, it didn't deter me. I saw that final end, and I was okay with what that was going to be. Not, it's not always what we expect. I also, at the same time, realized that if I was going to quit investment banking, I had to create some income, some businesses of my own besides the books and movies.
Right.
And so I learned internet marketing. I realized that we're in a new era now where people are so afraid of this technology or whatever. It's new, it's different. Yeah, well, so was the car against the horse and buggy, but if you, right? And and that darn rock and roll music, right? Come on.
Yeah.
It's still around. It's here to stay.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid of change, and I embrace it. And if I know and I feel that it's right, and we'll talk about that also, then I go with it, because along the way there's always an opening. It's always your message to the universe saying, I'm open, yes. And it's saying yes. And you're bettering yourself. You're learning new things. You're moving past the fear. And that message is, I'm not afraid. And that's a super high frequency.
Yes.
That fear can be in the room, but if you move past it, you are connecting now with that all abundant, all powerful frequency of which you are, but you get to choose. And that's what we're here for. We get to choose it. And that's the beauty of it.
Yes.
So yeah, I got the movie Learn Internet Marketing, and I have launched internet companies.
Okay.
Well, what happened is that in order to promote this training that I knew businesses had to learn, I worked with hundreds of businesses in my career, and I realized so many of them were struggling, but if they learned how to use the internet properly, that they could flourish. And that individuals could do that also. It's not just about being a company. I realized individuals have so much to share. They can do it online globally. They can actually be financially compensated for it. Why not? How wonderful is this? It's making our world smaller. We can talk to each other. It unites us if we allow it to.
Very true.
Yeah. So I learned this, and then one of the things I had to do in order to promote myself, if anybody's seen my channel and ads, you've seen me before promoting internet marketing.
Yes.
I had to launch a YouTube channel, and I didn't know what I was going to talk about. And I thought, well, I'll just talk about what I do, because I'm thinking, who's going to relate to an investment banker that's working with celebrities and but I realized it wasn't about that. It was, how did I create this new life? How did I let go of all of my fears? And even though that's who I am, you can get stuck along the way. How do you let go of everything? How do you see loss as part of the journey and experience it in the most positive way, instead of fearing it, fighting it, battling it, allowing you to take you down? And not, how do we see the value in that and use it to become something greater? How did I accomplish so many goals? I mean, there's just so many other things I've done in my life, because I am constantly expanding into and past the fear. And so I started to speak about that. And what happened is my YouTube channel started growing.
Wow.
And then people wanted my assistance. And so now, in addition to promoting my internet marketing training, I am now helping people to move past their fears and creating e-courses and events. And it's just, it's exploded. It's exploded because the universe now and I are connecting to where we're supposed to be. And I allowed that to happen.
Yes.
So that's where we are now. And I guess that's pretty good. That only took, 15 minutes, 10 minutes?
Oh. You know what? Don't worry about time, because
my whole life in 10 minutes.
No. Don't worry about the time, because all there is the now.
That's right.
All there is the now. But yeah. I'm really, like, I've done, close to 130 shows. And the amazing thing with every single guest, never fails, I see how I connect in so many different ways. For me, my journey from very young was always just following what was in my heart. And I didn't know, because like I said, I was like, quote unquote, the black sheep in the family, or, not, I was the one that was always criticized and put down in my family. Wow. And I used to remember when I was very young, used to say, well, why am I so different? And I would cry about it, because it seemed like at that time, it seemed like the world was against me. But
Caroline, we're told that's a bad thing. That's the funny. Why am I different? Well, yay.
Yes.
But no, we're told, why are you different?
Yeah.
That's part of the message of, here's how things are, and we believe it, and we don't even question why we believe it's ridiculous.
Exactly. But so there was something inside of me that, even though I was different and I was criticized for being different, I didn't allow that to stop me from being me. It was painful, because You know, I was criticized, I was put down, but and looking back, I'm 56, and in my whole life, I've never not followed what was inside my heart.
Yes.
And it always led me to exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Well, I want to share with you, and I don't know if you've heard this, because I'm a big fan of Greg Braden. I haven't really watched
I love him.
Oh,
I'm in love with Greg Braden.
He's one of my favorites. He and Dolores Cannon. I don't really
Yes.
watch other people's stuff. I try to come straight from what I get, and I don't channel. I believe we all channel. I believe we're all accessing the information. I try not to listen to other things, but he's scientific.
Yes.
And so I like to hear what they're coming up with, because he's always showing new amazing things. And last night I thought, what's he up to? And he's got a new book out, and they now have proof. I love using science in my teaching.
I love it.
Yes.
My awakening came from science.
Yes.
I studied spirituality and metaphysics off and on for 30
Yeah.
years. But I really woke up. I really got it. It was quantum entanglement.
Yes.
That is how I really understood.
Yes. And now you know they are not really separate. We've been told they're separate, but they're really not. Just because there's disagreements doesn't mean there's nothing separate, right?
There's nothing
Well,
separate.
yes. Well, and this is what Greg, as you know, has pursued.
Yes.
And so he ended up, going into monasteries and finding out these great masters that we're just talking about, who are
Right.
still around, who really, they sort of keep to themselves a lot. There's a lot of secrecy, because those powers and that mysticism to the world out there is abused and misused and misunderstood. So it has to be something respected and practiced.
Right.
So he has now is sharing some information, and thank goodness somebody's starting to put a curriculum together to teach children. I'm always complaining about that.
Yes.
Yes. He's doing this.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is on my heart. This is something I want to do.
Well, you have to watch his stuff, because he's saying they found out what you just said, that there's actually, let's say, neural connections in the heart equal to that of the brain. That it actually functions, and this is new, it actually functions as a thinking, intelligent part of our body that works with the brain. But that thing that you feel in your heart isn't just a feeling. It is actually a neurological, they're finding out that this intelligence lies separately from the brain, but works with it. And that's pretty amazing. So that feeling you get in your heart, and they always say gut feeling is really your heart. It's real.
Yes.
It's real. And so this is why more and more we are learning to be more intuitive and go with that. And people like yourself, that feeling is so powerful in your heart that if you don't go with that, and that was easier for you to do than to stay in that matrix, in that box that everybody told you should be in.
Right.
And so you pursued what you knew you had to do, no matter what the consequences. And most people are afraid to do that. So,
and let me share something with you. I'm very familiar with Greg Braden. He actually called me, and I'll explain why. But there's another good friend of Greg, or good connection with Greg. It's called Heart Math.
Yes. And Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut.
Yes.
He launched Heart Math.
Yes. And I've had Howard Martin as a guest. So the reason when Greg called me, because he wasn't calling me per se but he had to call me because I was working with Humanity's team, and we were recording a show. I was recording doing the producing a show that Greg was doing with Humanity's team, and to make sure we coordinated correctly, he called me, and when he's like, "Hi, this is Greg," I was like one of those. I was like one of those,
you're like, who? All right, one of your friends. Who put you up to this? It's not really Greg Braden. Because nobody would call and pretend to be Greg Braden. They pretend to be somebody, the Kardashians or something. But you and I, it's Greg Braden.
I was so actually gotten to speak with Greg Braden on the phone several times because I produced several shows for Humanities Team, which is Humanities Team is a nonprofit organization that was founded by Neil Donald Walsh, Conversations with God books.
Yes.
And so I was with them for 2.5 years. And when I was with them, I got to meet Greg Braden. I got to meet Bruce Lipton.
Awesome.
Again, I had met Howard before. I mean, all these, wonderful scientists.
Yeah.
I love the science. But
Joe Dispenza, he's another one. I've been to 2 of his events because he, again, talks about how the brain, it all works together. This is not separate. Yeah.
And I got to meet Joe in person in LA when I was invited by Michael Beckwith to go to the Agape International Revelation in 2015. And Joe was one of the speakers. So I got to meet Joe in person. So we are like those science guys, they float my boat. Yeah.
And I really know their stuff. I mean, the thing that I don't, even though I bring it in a lot, I do it from a spiritual standpoint because I absolutely do not know science like they do, and I'm sure I mess things up a bit when I explain it. But the bottom line is that we are powerful beyond our imagination.
Yes, we are.
We can prove that. Things have been done that are just mind-blowing. And I always tell people, if you're Christian, and I've never read the Bible, but I believe that, Christ was a very powerful prophet, like so many others on this planet, who keep telling us over and over again, ye are all gods, these things you shall do and more. But then the big why we believe what we do is because we were told that was bad. We were told that's blasphemous. We're told all these things that no matter how many experiments, and what's funny, Caroline, is I'll actually show people in my e-courses that are coming out soon. I'm really excited. I actually have videotapes of real experiments because when you tell people that you're not making this up, these are real experiments proving that you are changing matter, that you are changing the results of the experiment, they glaze over. I said, no, this isn't a theory. This is real stuff. But this is the world we live in that still has a difficulty to believe that they wield that kind of power. But I think we're getting there. We're starting to get there,
What's true about the science, I mean, I'm not a scientist, but I'm hearing a little, I'm not sure what that is.
That's the emergency broadcast system.
Oh, okay.
They're probably doing a test. Hopefully it's a test, Caroline.
Okay, awesome. I'm like, where is that coming from? But no, what you said about the science, I'm the same way. Like, I'm not a scientist. I can't explain the science the way the scientists can. But I can explain it in layman's terms.
Yes.
I can, and that I think that's helped more beneficial because the science goes over most people's head. But I can explain like this. I can explain like quantum physics, the core, the basis of quantum physics, which is quantum entanglement, which says everything is connected, like I talked in my opening. That science is what is creating all of today's technology. It's quantum physics, not the old Newtonian,
which is still valid, but I think about this. Now, this is the fun part, because when we go into that, people still, because you and I understand that, and I do watch the heavy duty stuff that would put people asleep.
Right.
But I always ask people if everything comes from one thing, if we keep let's reverse engineer this, and we all believe in the Big Bang on some degree. We know that something started and went out from one point. What happened before, what there is before that and around that, we don't know. But if that is true, and we know to be true, then how can anything be separate? Right. It's impossible. So if you have a photon, they've separated photons, put them 14 miles apart, and did something to this photon, and this one's reacting the same way. It's not communicating. There's no delay.
Right.
And it feels it, and then this feels it. it's feeling it at the same time because it is still not separate.
They're not separate.
They're not separate, and we are no different. So if no matter how many times you separate us, you and me and the tree and everything else, it is one energy. And I have to tell you, in my most awakened state, I was told some things that I didn't understand at the time that are so crystal clear now, that everything is one thing, all happening at the same time, not simultaneously happening at the same time, like a bunch of events at the same time. It is one thing happening. And the second thing I was told is there's no such thing as time. And
well,
that was
Einstein said that.
Yeah.
But no, that's what I was just saying. When
right.
I was kind of teasing you when you were saying, when you were talking about, oh, it only took about 15 minutes. I said, all there is, and
yes.
In true spiritual truth, it's
yes.
spiritual and scientific, because science has proven this now. All there is the now. There is no past, there is no future. It's all happening now. And they're all, anything that can happen does happen on a certain it's all frequency. So you experience what you are a frequency match to. That's what you experience, but it's all happening. You went left and right. So the left one is going to experience that part. And this is science too. It's science. It's what do you call it now?
All probabilities.
Multi-dimensional theory. I forget the technical term for it, but it's all of this that we're talking about, that spirituality has been talking about for eons.
Yes.
Science has now proven it.
Yes, proven.
Yes, science has proven it, and science has just touched the tip part of it. Science has a long way to go.
Yes, isn't that the truth? I always tell people, I say, this is just, and as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing to know. I call it the knowing. When you go into the super awakened state, you have what's called the knowing. You don't need to know anything. You don't need answers. You don't need to know anything. Everything is possible. All probabilities exist. In fact, experiments have shown that they can actually, and we won't go into this because it's a little freaky, but you can actually change the past. They've done experiments where the reaction looking back was reflecting the future. And so that's a little mind-blowing. But so we have
that's true, because all there is the now. There is truly no past. There's truly no future. All there is the here and now. Truly is. And the now moment affects the past and the future.
Exactly, because it is one thing. Now, the fun part is, and we have a lot of fun with this on my channel. People are trying to wrap their head around this, is quantum leaps, which I've experienced a couple recently that were unexplainable. So I want to really emphasize to everyone that because everything exists at one time, you can actually shift over. Now, I was a speaker at a conference in London recently, and there was a lot of my YouTube subscribers in the audience, and I said, I'm going to say something that's going to shock you guys, especially those of you who watch my channel. I said, I don't believe in law of attraction, and the whole audience went, ooh.
You know what? That was, no. That was your video I saw. Then after I saw that video, I invited you to be a guest on the show.
See,
and so that was the first video I saw.
So you got it. So most people didn't get it, and I said, let me explain, because you're going to get excited on why I do this, and it sounds like I'm going against somebody else out there, and I'm really not. I actually think all these other spiritual teachers are amazing, and what they're saying works, but a lot of people have a tough time with that, because the phrasing is, there's a law that you have to attract something to you. And I don't believe that.
Right.
We know science has proven that every probability exists right here, right now. You're in it. And like you just said, Caroline, all you have to do is shift into it. It's a frequency. This pen is a frequency. Everything is the same thing. It's just a frequency.
Frequency, exactly.
Yes, there is nothing solid. So if you, there is nothing solid.
I say that all the time. But you know where I learned that? Seventh grade science class.
Yes.
I'll never forget in 7th grade science class when we were studying molecules and atoms, my teacher said, nothing is truly solid. And that stuck with me because that was truth.
Yes.
Yes.
And so it's exciting because instead of trying to understand this, I tell people, just know that all things are possible. Now, yes, we did choose, and we have problems with this. We chose to be in these roles, in these bodies, and so we do play by certain rules, but ultimately there aren't any. And the law of attraction, the other thing that I appear to go against, I don't go against anything, is asking it is given. Once again, there's somebody else out there who teaches that, and it's amazing.
Right.
And that's it from the Bible. But I said, I don't believe in asking it's given the way we think of it. Right. I think the Bible meant you're always asking and it's given.
It's always given.
You're always asking. It's not like, oh, here's this thing I want. I'll ask for it and it's going to give it to me. No, I flip it around. So I say, I believe in all probabilities, everything exists right now. And that's what I adhere to. I don't believe in law of attraction. So so that people stop thinking that there's something separate from them that they have to bring in. There is nothing separate from you. You are the thing you want. All right. So the second thing about asking is given. I have to ask somebody and get permission, and it'll decide if I'm worthy or not, or if I'm in the right frequency. It doesn't work that way. So, and we know science is supporting this.
Right.
And so I say give and receive. Giving is the message, I'm abundant, and if you can't even pay your bill, you can find a way to give. And that message is abundance flows, and that no matter what I see in this supposedly material world doesn't really exist, because as soon as I switch gears into the new reality that says I'm going to give, the universe you are now receiving the exact same message you're putting out. There's no message that has to go, nothing that has to grant you a wish or a material item. You are now creating the very thing that you desire because you're giving it. Because you are one, you're doing it for yourself. And so when I get that into people's heads, they're going, oh my God, not only are they doing it, I have people trying this. I have them sending, I said, if you can't give anything, or it's pushing somebody's cart back in the grocery store.
Right, you can open the door for
someone. The door.
You can give someone a smile.
Don't you look lovely?
Yes, a compliment. Yes, thank you. I mean, there's always something to give because we're abundant. We are.
There's no lack.
No lack at all. No lack in the universe.
But if you believe it, you create that because you have that power. And I tell people, they say, well, Landria, you have all these things, you this and that, and I don't. And I said, okay, you don't. The universe said yes, because you are.
You just said it.
Yeah, and they're like,
if you say I have it, you have it. If you say I don't have it, you don't have it. You are that powerful.
Yes.
And to own it. So the two things, I love what you're saying, because the two things I try to share on this show is to own your reality. You did chose it. 100, 1,000%. Everything you're experiencing, everything you go through, you are creating.
Yes.
The outer world is just a reflection of you. That's all.
Well, people don't want to take responsibility because that means that, and the reason why they don't, first of all, if they don't, they're becoming a victim and they're disempowering themselves. I believe as soon as you own your reality, you become all powerful. All powerful. Now you're saying, I did do that. But the reason why most people don't want to claim it is because then they blame themselves for doing something negative. Now, then the second thing they have to do there is, I have to stop looking at that as negative, and all those things aren't negative. And the most empowering thing, and Dolores Cannon says this, most powerful thing you can do is forgive. And I'll take that even further. I tell people, send light, love, and blessings. That's giving. And I'm having people write me with miracles happening, not because they expected to receive anything. They weren't trying to manifest a car or the lottery. I call it the lottery mentality. They are receiving unbelievable miracles because they weren't even thinking about it. They're now going on a frequency where all abundance lies. They're sending light and love to blessings. The most difficult thing they've had to do They've had their own healings. They're feeling abundant. People call them with checks and all this stuff, and I'm not making this stuff up. I have this in comments and emails, and it's mind-blowing. But here's the other step: when you keep going higher and higher, for me, there is no forgiveness, and I'll explain what that means. So I as you know,
I know exactly. Well,
you know.
I know there's no forgiveness because it's only you. So all you're doing is forgiving you.
No.
So, yes.
No. Let's take that take that a little further.
Okay.
There's nothing to forgive.
Right.
Nobody's ever done anything wrong. There's no, you cannot do anything wrong. I agree with that
also, because everything that happens for your highest good.
Yes. So, and we've asked for that so that we can experience something and use it triumphantly or not. But if you don't think that there is any right or wrong, then nobody's ever done anything wrong to you. So there's nothing to forgive because you see them as something perfect and beautiful and part of the journey that you agreed to experience it. And that's when you release everything. And you say, thank you, you know, ow, that wasn't so much fun, but I know that something was supposed to come from that. I'm going to find it. Yes. Bless you. And that's when you are so free. And that's when miracles, healings beyond your imagination, because you are now in that zone. And Greg Braden teaches this, where your DNA opens up and now is no longer coiled. The me, the ego is now connected to that. Right. And your immune system goes up. You look younger. It all works.
Yes. I have to say, you might be the only person I ever heard say, other than myself, and I say it all the time, there is no right and wrong.
Yes, there isn't.
There isn't. Oh, and I use the yin and the yang symbol as the black and the white and the yin and yang are equal. And it's all one. It's all one, and they're equal. And there is no right or wrong, like you said. Everything happens in perfect divine timing. There's no coincidence. Everything is perfectly divine. Everything that happens.
Now, Caroline, and I'm sure you've heard this, when you put yourself out there to the public and you make statements like that, there's always a percentage of people that have a big backlash, that feel that they're victims, they deserve this. What about babies who get hurt and all these wars and this stuff? And you can't tell me that they asked for that or this. And then I said, you know, I don't have all the answers, but I still am going to stick to the fact that everything is a divine experience. I don't say good or bad, right?
Here's what I share. And here's a great book, and it's a children's book by Neil Donald Walsh. It's The Little Soul in the Sun. I recommend, it's a children's book that I read to my grandson all the time. But it explains, when we're in spirit, we make soul agreements, and we even ask. We'll ask in spirit, will you kill me so I can experience that? Seriously, it is a soul. And I will say this, and it's going to be, I'm actually writing my first book, but the slave and the slave owner are one.
Yes.
The rapist and the person that got raped are one. Yes. The Jews and Hitler and the Nazis are one. Yes. And I know that people from the human perspective can't understand it. But when your soul knows that your soul is sovereign, meaning nothing can happen to you without your soul agreement. Nothing. Yes. If you didn't agree to it, it can't happen. So your soul agreed to that accident. My soul agreed for my son to go into spirit 4 years ago. My son's 29 years old. My soul, there was a soul, and I was at peace when he transitioned, because I knew, I was reading Your Soul's Plan and Your Soul's Gift by Robert Schwartz, who happened, I launched this show 6 months after my son's transition, and Robert Schwartz, the author of Your Soul's Plan, Your Soul's Gift, was my first guest 3.5 years ago. But I know I am a divine aspect of God.
Yes.
There's nothing to fear when you know I can never be separated from God. And all the all the attributes I give to God, I can give to me, because it's holographic.
It is.
Like Rumi says, you're not a drop in the ocean. You are the ocean in a drop. I am all of God in a drop. And anything I say about everything I say about God, I can say about myself.
Yes.
All knowing, all seeing, all being, all everything. And I am sovereign, meaning nothing can happen in my experience that I did not agree to.
And still have free will to change along the way. So
exactly.
If you decide to exit and you don't want to handle something, you kill yourself, you don't get out of anything. You can change your mind along the way. That's the free will part.
But free will and destiny go hand in hand. It's not this or that. It's and that.
Exactly. This is why people who die are told that you have to go back, because they still have to fulfill that contract. And so they have to go through. But you are right. Exactly. You say the yin and the yang. Well, and we just said we are one. We're not separate. Quantum physics reassures us. And then people say there's Satan and Hitler and all that stuff. I said, listen, that is, if we are one, that deepest, darkest expression is still part of the one. Experiencing the depths of what it is and can be. It's not truly that. It is the highest frequency, but it's experiencing what it can be. And I always tell people there's no wars. There's no war without Hitler didn't do anything without other people going along with it.
Exactly.
That's where we as a collective,
yes, he didn't come into power by himself.
No, he's just a crazy guy in jail, right?
Well, many spiritual people say Hitler must have been a very evolved soul to go down that deep, to choose to forget who he was, to go down that deep. Some say he was a very evolved soul, a very courageous soul would even be a better word.
I don't think I would go along with that one personally. But
okay, I'm saying if we have, now oneness is equality. Meaning no matter how awake or asleep we are, we're still equal.
Yes, exactly.
So we can't say, well, of course it's the atrocities he did. Nobody's condoning that. No. But we also know in spirit it's not real.
Exactly.
In spirit, it's just a movie. It's a play of our own creation. It's like going to the movies. Now, if you watched it on the movie theater and that actor played Hitler and did what he did, you're like, oh, he's just an actor.
Yes.
There's no difference in this in this movie of our own creation. There's no difference.
It's difficult because humans, as much as we say this, are still sitting there right now thinking of themselves as individuals. Right. And so I always say, when you're looking at the other, you are looking at another expression of yourself. Right. So then we'll sit and talk this spiritual stuff and they'll walk out the door and battle each other over cultures, money, parking space, political views. Yes. And then and I say, wait a minute. This is it, when we come together and that goes away, there are no wars, there is no starving children, there is no abuse, so the things that those people are talking about, we are actually still contributing to that on some level in the collective, because it all goes away when we become one and we function that way, and that people are not trying to manifest the lottery, which they tell me they're going to save the world with. I said, you can do it right now. In fact, if you do it right now, you're more likely to win the lottery.
Exactly. Right? It's not about money. Everything is just energy. And money is energy, and you attract exactly what you put out. Because really, like I said, and this is even proved scientifically, there is nothing outside of you.
No.
Everything is happening within you.
Yes.
That what appears to be the outer world is just a projection, like a movie theater, and the projector is projecting that image on the screen.
Yes.
We are all walking projectors.
Yes.
Projecting our reality around us. It's not even real. It's not solid. It's not real. It's just a reflection of what's going on inside of us.
Yes.
So whatever we experience is just going on inside of us.
The wave particle. Yes. A wave, if people don't know what this is, the wave is the probability of which, upon just the focus of it, turns into a particle. It becomes whatever that person. So now the scientist isn't just looking, observing, they're participating in what happens to that wave.
Right.
So they're determining how it reacts. It's not like, oh, when they observe it, it reacts the way it's supposed to. No, the actual participation of observing it creates different results, which means that scientist has no more power than we do. And I got to tell you, when you grasp all of this, as you know, Caroline, you feel the power. And I have a meditation on my channel. I have people push their energy out, not because they aren't already there. I want them to get out of this self, individual thought that's keeping them here, and actually expand out into everything. And it's a little mind-blowing because you realize your power is scary from a human standpoint, is scary of what you're really capable of. And when you do positive things with it, the receiving is amazing.
Right. And here's my definition of positive and negative. Positive is integrative. Positive is knowing that you are a part of everything and everything's a part of you. That knowing. And negative is separative, meaning thinking that you're separate, that person's separate than me, so I can hurt that person, or that ant is separate than me, I can step on that ant. Just thinking so to me, it's all either knowing the integration of all things, or thinking that everything's separate. So I'm going to act from thinking everything's separate, or I'm going to act from knowing that everything is interconnected.
You're right. It's opposition and battling. That's why I tell people, battle nothing. So when we feel fear and all these negative feelings, we're opposing it, and so that creates more negativity, like you said. And so it's the toughest thing for humans to do is to be positive and to actually open it, allow it, don't battle it anymore. It will dissipate. It loses its power. There's nothing. It's not being fueled anymore. And that's when we start to get a grip on it and realize, wait a minute, I don't feel bad anymore. And I'm still sitting in the same room, and everything was just this story in my head, and I stopped battling it. And you're right, the negative space is the individual. We are separate. What I need, and fear is an emotion. That is fueled by a belief. You have to have a belief that you are being threatened to create an emotion. I said fear's not a problem. It's just the residual of a belief that you are being threatened, that there's lack, that you need to get something before somebody else does, that you're better or not as good as somebody else. It's all this belief. And when you change that belief, like you said, you're controlling everything. There is no fear. It doesn't exist.
Exactly.
And so fear is not the problem.
Question, why are you fearful? Question your belief system, because fear does come from a belief, and it's a belief that your higher self is not in agreement with.
There's a threat.
All those so-called negative feelings come from your higher self, like, nah, I'm not going there. I'm with you, but I'm not going there with you.
And now as you know, the higher self can never be threatened. It can never be created nor destroyed. It always is. So there's nothing that can ever destroy it. And what we as individuals, thinking individuals, feel that we're separate, feel that we can be destroyed, and we are not this body. This is when the visual world works against us.
And when you know you are a divine aspect of God that can never be destroyed, that is eternal. And for me, what I do when I'm in those moments where I quiet my mind, because the mind just chatters. I quiet that mind chatter. I take a few deep breaths and I go into my heart and I listen to what's coming from the heart, because the heart intelligence, that's the word you use, the heart math has proven the heart intelligence is much more, and the heart intelligence actually does control the mind, but sometimes we let that chatty mind get in the way where we can't even hear what our heart is saying. So I say take and presence, and ground yourself in this present moment. Is anything happening in this present moment to be fearful of? Ask yourself that. Is there anything happening in this present moment? And also in the present moment, you've mentioned about giving. I use the present moment also to be just grateful.
Yes.
Just thankful for
what you have, which says I have.
Warm. Yes. Or if I love taking a shower, just grateful for the warmth of the shower and being able to get clean. Just grateful for a glass of water. Just saying thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Because there is a blessing in every now moment. Every now moment. And when you know that in your heart, you look for it and you say thankful. Say thank you. Because there's if we just started writing down the things we can be thankful for. Go on all day writing. Because truly. But most of us, we're focusing on lack. Lack of what we think, which we're always abundant. We're abundant.
Driven by the ego, which is driven by I'm an individual separate from you, which continues a never-ending cycle that will take you down, which I always tell people, don't interfere with other people's journeys. Always be there, give, help, do whatever. But when we try to change somebody else, we think we know better than them. That's part of our ego trying to stop them from, I said, if somebody has to fall flat all the way to the bottom, that may be their awakened moment.
But and that's their journey. That's also of course, when we can help, we help. But when you allow the person, you have to allow them, because they are a divine aspect of God. They're no different than us. And I say sometimes we may be a little bit more awake. That's why I named the show Awake to Oneness. We just have to remember who we are. And some might be very asleep, and some might chose to stay asleep. It's okay. No judgment. No judgment, because we're all equal. We're all equal because God wants to experience everything through us. So he wants to experience the high vibration and the low vibration and everything in between.
So now, something we haven't talked about, which we're experiencing, is the transition of the planet to the higher dimensions, which has been underway, is already happening, and we are going through, and I'm sure you've experienced a lot of major stuff going on, big stuff physically with electronics, the way people are behaving, and the split's already happening. So you'll see a lot of people getting worse. And a lot of people waking up, and we get to choose which earth we're going to live on. And again, since there's no end to the dimensions, to what exists, reality, we get to choose what reality we live in. And that's pretty amazing. And I think that people like you and I, who've gone with our hearts and gone and left the world that we were supposed to be in, right, according to the world, not us, and now are making a huge difference. And I don't think people realize that as individuals, you don't have to have, a million YouTube subscribers to change the world. It's starting here, and that's why I always say my motto is my mission: changing the frequency of the planet, one light being at a time. And guess who that starts with?
You. Starts with you. It's got to start.
Only one. Only one. And then there's nobody. There's nobody else left, right?
Exactly. Like I followed I got up in the middle of the night. It was 6 months after my son's transition. I had woken to oneness by, it was a quantum physics film, What the Bleep. I don't know if you ever saw it.
Oh yeah, years ago.
Oh yes, well it was 2007. I watched What the Bleep, and there was one statement Lynn McTaggart said, and I've had the honor of having her as a guest. She said in that documentary, the biggest problem in the world today is the illusion of separateness. And when she said that, something woke up inside of me. And so I got it. And from that, I understood everything that I was confused about, got crystal clear. Just understand. I get it. Okay. But now 6 months. So this is it. That was in 2007. And my son transitioned in 2014. And 6 months after his transition, I was at peace. But it's also my story. It's an interesting story because 3 years before, 2.5 years before he actually transitioned, doctors said he wasn't going to wanted to take him off life support. I refused and went upstairs and took a bottle of sleeping pills. Because I wrote a suicide note. I am not burying my son. That was in 2011.
Wow.
And so when he did actually transition in 2014, I was at peace because I knew it was a soul agreement. And I knew it was his time. If he transitioned, it was his time. It was a soul agreement, and he's not going anywhere. And I actually have his voice on tape from 2 years ago. He transitioned 4 years ago, but from his birthday 2 years ago, I have his voice on tape. So,
well, Caroline, I think that we might have to have another talk about just this, because my dad in particular did some pretty amazing things. I had to get him off of life support too. Yes. Amazing things that people in the room witnessed, that you can't make this stuff up, that there is no ending to anything. In fact, sometimes they become more powerful on the other side.
Yes.
And which helps you in your mission. You had to stay here because you're a light worker.
Yes.
And that's pretty amazing. And that's another thing of the letting go, acceptance, and knowing that this is such a short period of time that we get to play this role.
Yes.
And how wonderful it is.
Yes.
So I would love to hear about this with your son, because
definitely. Well, he even told me in that it was my very first reading with a guest I had that I knew when he transitioned I wanted a reading, but I didn't go searching.
Right.
Someone recommended a medium, Suzanne Giesemann, to be a guest on my show, and after she was a guest on my show, I put in my mind, she's the one for me. And several months after that, on his birthday, she gifted me with a reading, because actually she also channels her higher self called Sanaya. Sanaya had already told her before she got my email that she would be doing a reading on Thanksgiving Day. My son's birthday that year, 2016, was on Thanksgiving Day. So Sanaya, her higher self, her spirit guides, her spirit guides had already told her she was going to do a reading for a mom. She didn't know it was me, who had lost a son. Then I sent her an email, and she knew right away it was me. And she's like, we're doing a reading on his birthday. And from that reading, we got his voice on tape, which is called EVP, which I had never heard of, electronic voice phenomena. I had never heard of it until I experienced it. And he says he's very proud of what I'm doing, and he's my co-host. So he's right here now.
Amazing.
Like whenever I do a show, he's right there with me. So
I love it.
He's my co-host, yes.
Yeah, again, so letting go of the fear and knowing when you know that you're one and that there's no ending to anything, the fear does go away, because you know that this is the tough part. This is one of the toughest planets in the universe. So kudos to all of you for being here.
Yes, we're all courageous. We are all courageous souls. And and also we were talking about Hitler, but in the, I don't know if you ever read the Conversations with God books. There's some of my Conversations with God book 1, 2, and 3, and he just published book 4 last year. But in the beginning of Conversations with God 1, it says, Hitler went to heaven, and in the understanding of this, you'll understand all of my teachings. And it's very simple it's a simple understanding. Like you said, there's no forgiveness needed.
No,
because
but there is learning. There is learning. So if somebody has a choice and they choose something more of a negative nature and a lower frequency, they still have to work that out. So we never have to worry about that. They've got to go down that path, and they're going to have to understand.
And they choose, but it's also their choice.
Yes.
It's not, no one is making them, so they don't have to feel like they're a victim to anything, because it's all their soul's choice. Yes. Their soul, for some higher reason, is choosing to go down this path.
Yes.
So it's for their soul's evolution.
And from what I have heard, and I'm certainly not an expert on near-death experiences, that we do have to experience that which we did to others from their viewpoint. So that we're going to have to experience that without judgment from the one, but ourselves, and that's probably tougher than
Exactly. We each go through a soul review. As soon as we leave this body, the first thing we do is go through a soul review.
Yes.
And in that soul review, you feel exactly what that other person felt.
Yes.
Because remember, you're one with that other person.
Right.
So when you're in spirit, now you can actually feel what they felt. So a lot of times we're like, oh, I want to go back because I want to make that correction. You know, so we impose the karma on ourselves, but in truth, because we're still thinking of things in the linear terms, in truth, in the now moment, as soon as it happened, it was rectified. The universe stays balanced in the now moment. So it's already taken care of. The universe keeps everything balanced. But when you go through that soul review, yes, you do. You feel all of the pain that you inflict on another in your soul review, and then you choose to come back here and correct it. That's what karma is, balancing. That's all it is. It's not a negative thing.
No, and I do believe that we are at a point now where karma can be rectified here and now, and it doesn't have to be done in multiple lifetimes, that everyone can rectify anything. And again, not look at everything you've done as some sinful thing that you have to be punished for on the other side. It doesn't work that way. It is you are absolutely loved beyond your imagination, beyond our comprehension.
Yes.
It is part of the experience. You have come here under the veil. That was a big challenge, just trying to reconnect. And there's always things that can be done. No matter what you've done in your life, you can rectify it here in this lifetime.
In this now moment. This now moment
right now
is your point of power. Because remember, we talked about all there is the now. And in this now moment, it actually affects what we call future and past, past and future.
Yes.
This now. So it's right, like you said, in this now is the point of power.
Yes.
And now you can rectify or clear up your karma right here.
Yes. That reality and that energy shifts. Just shifts. And so it all takes on a different, higher meaning, and we're doing it.
Yes.
Wow. Yes. How cool is that? Like, people are like, I always laugh and they say, oh, well, I said, no, I don't have those feelings anymore. I don't, there's always sadness. There's human feelings that you're going to experience, but I don't look at them as negative anymore, because as like you, I see us as one, and it's not always easy.
Yes.
It's this is a tough journey, but once you become awakened to that state, everything looks so new and beautiful.
Yes.
And it's pretty exciting to be a part of this journey at this linear time in this moment on Earth.
It is. And we actually chose. We knew, when in spirit, we were eager to come. This particular time.
What were we thinking, Caroline?
No, because it is one of my favorite books of Neil is Home with God. And I say that's one of my favorite. And I read that book after my son's transition. That was the first book. And I read it because in this now moment, the larger part of us is still home with God. Our higher self. There's just a small, teeny percentage of us that comes down to experience this. So, but we're all, in truth, the now moment, we're always home with God right now. So I don't encourage anybody to think, oh, we have to escape this. There's nothing to escape.
You're right.
Here and now is home.
Yes. Again, you are one energy. So how you cannot be in this body. So I'll just say this briefly, because this was an experience I had recently. It's I'm not somebody who's I have had an out-of-body experience once that was pretty mind-blowing, but it's not something that I try to do or whatever. But I was meditating recently, a few months ago, and I was not asleep, and I was aware of standing in the other room with two light beings. Okay. And I saw myself on the sofa meditating, and I actually said to them, I think I'm going to give up fear. Like it was a game. And then as soon as I said it, I popped back into my body and I went, oh my gosh,
God, wow.
I got to experience myself in the other realms, actually observing my human body and participating in that
conversation,
and what was going on, and making decisions from that.
Yes. It's kind of like lucid dreaming. It's like lucid dreaming, but when you have a lucid dream and you know that you're dreaming, that's the same thing about waking up in this reality. It is a lucid dream.
Theta state. Yes, theta state. And Joe Dispenza does that. He gets us to stay in theta state so that we are releasing the ego and connecting to that other side. That's when you lose grip a little bit and you allow yourself to go over to the other side. And that's very real.
Yes.
That's not a dream.
That's more real than this.
Yes.
Even though this feels so solid, it feels so real, and it only feels so solid because of a frequency. It's a low. We're in this quote unquote physical reality. I'll say quote unquote because nothing is physical, but in this reality, it's vibrating at a very low frequency. Dense. That's why it feels so solid. But in truth, it's just as it's the spiritual. I always say the spiritual realm and what we quote unquote physical realm are not separate.
No.
The physical comes out of the spiritual. It's just the spiritual is at a higher frequency than the physical is at a lower, denser frequency.
So what you're bringing up is, and again, this starts to, and I love to expand viewers' minds. Let's take you out there. Let's get you to think about this, because at some point I've had people like, and I've done it myself, where you're like, what? And then maybe a few months later, it makes perfect sense, and you keep going and expanding.
Yes.
But you just said it, and that is, people still believe that, okay, I'm a spirit, I'm not this body, but that I'm the spirit that goes to the other side. But you just said it beautifully, and that is, we're already part of that other side. We are the intelligence that is masterminding everything, expressing itself as an seemingly individual, but you are still the energy out there that is perfect, resonating on a higher frequency and experiencing everything else.
Yes.
And so that's so that gives you even more power. That's why when we shift our energy out in meditation, you start to connect to it. You will get answers.
Yes.
Opportunities and things, because now you're bringing down the barriers and realizing I am that power that is sending me the answers.
Exactly. And it's amazing. And as the one, we have access to everything. We have access to all knowledge, everything. There's nothing we don't have access to, and it's all right here.
Yes.
So true. This has been amazing. Now, please share with our listeners how they can find you, how they can follow you, how they can see all the good, neat stuff you're doing.
So here's the beauty of being the only Landria Onkka on the face of the planet.
Okay.
Is that if you Google my name, and I'll spell it, it's Landria, and my last name is O-N as in Nancy, K-K-A, O-N-K-K-A. It's Finnish. My family's from Finland.
Okay.
My YouTube channel is Landria Onkka. Landriaonkka.com is my spiritual site where I have e-courses, events, all kinds of cool stuff. You can sign up for my inspiration. And then my landriaonkka.net is my internet training where I help people create different lives by getting out of those jobs they hate. And that's just that's all business. But but you know what, Caroline, we bring the spiritual aspect into everything.
Everything we do.
It's not separate. And I look at it like, you need to love what you're doing for a living. You can be abundant. It's okay to make money.
It's fine. Definitely. Well, I say I've been teaching. I'm a piano teacher. I teach children from the age of 4 to 16. And I've been teaching piano lessons for 25 years. And I say to my students, do what you love.
Yes.
You never have to work a day in your life.
Absolutely.
All the time. I mean, they don't have to stick with piano, but whatever they love, do what you love. You never have to work a day in your life. And you're a beautiful influence. And there's only one other interview. I did Voice of America a couple years ago to 127 countries. That's the only other online interview I did, because like I said,
I really have to resonate with who I'm speaking with. And I knew I had to talk to you. You are just a beautiful force of energy and an amazing, enlightened, let's say teacher, mentor, guide. So I'm so happy that we met. Thank you for reaching out and connecting.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I always say on this show, I say to my listeners, I don't consider myself a teacher or a guru. I just try to share what resonates with me. And I encourage people, don't go by what I say.
Yes.
Go within, quiet the mind, go within and go. If it resonates with you, then that's beautiful. And if it doesn't, that's okay. I always say just go within, but I do believe we're all teachers and we're all students. We can all learn something from somebody and we can all teach something to somebody.
Absolutely.
So I think we're both. We're just like, there's a teacher and the student are one.
Absolutely. I love it.
Wonderful.
Same here.
So amazing.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. And your link will be in the description for this video so people can find you. And also, please share it. I know there's a way to mirror. I'll have it on mine, but you can also mirror it on your channel.
Yes. And again, if people come to my channel, same thing. We'll have the interview on there so people can go over to your channel and see what you're doing, and we'll share all that information.
Thank you so much. Oh,
thank you.
Have a wonderful day, the rest of your day. Love you so much.
Thank you. Love you too.
We're going to keep in touch.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
All righty. Bye-bye.